Hey crew, it's Pitt, and I'm back with a little something different. This one's going to be a bit of a rambler. It's going to be a bit on the personal side, and it is a story of learning to submit, so it's not going to be for everyone, but you are welcome to tag along as I tell a little bit about the history of this channel and how it has changed over the course of the last 4 years. Uh, Many of you are not here for the long haul, right? Y'all have just recently found the channel, and that is awesome. I am grateful for every single crew member that shows up. I pray for y'all every single day, but that wasn't always the case. And to see the evolution of how it happened, which I started doing this morning, is a good thing, right? To see how things happened and how things changed is good. To go back and self reflect and look at your own growth is good. And the conversation with Indian Jesus pushed me to do a little bit more introspection, and I went back to where I started. And if you want to see where I started, unfortunately, you cannot do that on YouTube because of the political nature of some of the things that I was doing. You can't do that over there. But in 2019, the very end of 2019, we're not going to talk about the sickness, but I was sick and I got better, and I decided to take charge of my health, both physically and mentally, and to seek something new to do with my life. I was disabled. I'm on disability. I got max benefits. I worked really hard in my youth. I was somewhat of a hard worker, and so it 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 was really unsettling for me to be idle. I had tried. I put out applications everywhere, but I'm undependable because sometimes I have to lay down for a while. It's just a reality of my life these days. So I started walking December 31st, 2019. I lost a considerable amount of weight between then and now, but I didn't realize how visible it was until I looked at this video here with AG Bar Slams at Apple and the one right above it, right? I can really see how much bigger I was and how much my life has changed in a really physical way there. What I was doing here, we were going into the 2020 election season. Things were ramping up, right? This was January 14th was when the first video got transferred over to BitChute. I was on YouTube for about a week before I started putting things up on BitChute as a backup, and I'm glad I did so that I have this because all of those videos are gone on YouTube. I cannot have the political stuff over there. I get banned for my opinions. And so I don't. I steered away from that, but it was not my choice. It wasn't even really YouTube's choice because as I scroll up this, if you click on this video right here, this bottom video, you can hear me speak in my voice. And then if you scroll up through these news videos, I lose a little bit more of it every single day. Every single day, it gets a little bit harder for me to talk. Every single day, it is a little bit more difficult for me to express my political views. It is harder for me to lean into what I was trying to do, and that was to be the very loud, very opinionated person on the right. I was going to be center right because that is where I am, right? That is who I am. I am very center right. And so I was going to be that voice because we have plenty of them screaming alt, like far right, right? Not alt right and all that bull crap mess, but they are there. But that's not even who I'm talking about. I'm talking about the talking heads of 2020 and all of their rhetoric in January, right? And you can go back through what was happening in January, and you can go back to where I was reporting on something before it happened. This was well before March 13th, 2020. But my voice was failing me here. And you can scroll up and you can see where I was trying new things on the channel, and I was going through different phases with the news. I was trying different viewpoints and trying different things, and there's a lot there. I don't recommend going through all of it, but it is nice to see. And then you come to here, right? This is November 19th, 2020. This is just before the elections happened, and you can see that the video description started making videos again. I had quit in February 27th, 2020 was my last political video because my voice was just done. I couldn't do it anymore. It wasn't worth the fight. I was getting frustrated, and God kind of told me not to do it. We got into March, and all of that happened, and I didn't say anything because I literally couldn't talk. I went to the doctor. Between these two videos right here, I went to the doctor, and there was a slight bone of contention in my house for the last 3 years because the thing in my throat. What was causing me to not be able to talk was a cyst, right? Benign, no cancer, no nothing like that, and it was a relatively easy remove, and I wouldn't have it done. Something inside of me told me that when it was time for me to talk, then it would be gone. And I told my wife that, and she was not happy with me, right? Because it has not been easy to not be able to express myself fully for the last couple of years. I didn't even realize it though, but before I started this, right, I should have said this before we got into it. I went and had a scope done, and they changed my medicine from ranitidine to omeprazole, which is the prescription that replaced ranitidine. And I didn't tie together that those might be connected with my voice disappearing, but there might be a connection, and we're going to get to that. That's why I wanted to put that in here. But they could have removed it. I chose not to have it done, and I said that when it was time, God would take it out. When it was time for me to do what I needed to do and to say what I needed to say and to be where I needed to be, then God would remove that. And you can watch me struggle with it through these videos. Now this MBTI thing, this is the beginning of the MBTI. I had done exactly one typing video. It was Steve Aoki, and it didn't go the way that I thought it would because I was using somebody else's process, and some of the terms were a little bit more subjective than I cared for it to be. And like, I'm not talking about it was a slight difference in the typing. It was a completely different takeaway from the situation, and it concerned me. And so I stopped doing that, and I spent some time digging into things, and I made this video here November 19th, 2020. And that was the last video I made on MBTI until July 19th of 2021, when I did this CogDet video right here. In between this point and this point, I wrote a computer program. I went into Unreal Engine 5, and I made a program where you could type yourself based off of my system. But first I tried to use theirs. There were 3 systems that I reviewed in this video. I didn't really review them. I really just talked about them very briefly because I had already kind of started trying to move past that. And so from this point, I needed something that would work better, but I was trying to use their system. So I made the CogDet app, and I tried to use their variables to make it work, and it would not. It would absolutely not work. Not at all. It was pretty terrible how logically inconsistent that it turned out to be. And so I, using my logic and my stack, tried to do it better. I was like, my logic will work better than their logic, and as far as I'm concerned, it did. I wrote a program where you could diagnose yourself, and diagnose is a very loose term. This is not medically associated at all, but you could type yourself using this. And that is the current system that we're using today. It is, all the variables are still the same thing that they were all the way back there. I haven't found the need to change any of them, even though I took my focus away from this for a while. But between these 2 videos, pretty much all I did from November 19th of 2020 until July 19th of 2021 was work on this system. Now, you don't understand what that means because you don't live with me and you don't know me, and you don't know how absolutely unreasonable I can be when I have an idea stuck in my teeth. I have NI dominant. I am so willful on my logic that it is ridiculous. And so when I say that I spent time, the entirety of this time from when I woke up to when I went to sleep, I didn't play video games. I studied this. I studied Jung. I studied all the various philosophers that I could lay my hands on that were related to the subject to try to find the commonality to pull out, because I see patterns. That's what NI does as well, right? We're willful and we see patterns. That's what we do. To our detriment quite often. But I started picking out the patterns, and it took me pretty close to a year to come up with a system that was logically consistent enough for me to give it back to the internet. And during this whole time, my voice is dead. I'm still not having the surgery. I start going back into the videos, though. I start leaning into the MBTI because I thought that this is where I'm going to help somebody. Somebody is going to get some help out of the MBTI system. And so despite the fact that I couldn't really talk, I started typing people. I started with some people that I admired. Jess over at Roots and Refuge has done a great thing, and she's a wonderful person, and her husband is too. And so I admired them. I did a video on them, and they were tangentially related to the Jill from Whispering Willow, so I did her too. And then I started doing some of the music artists that I was listening to, right? And then Shannon showed up. Shout out to Shannon, my day one #1 fan right there. She was my very first request. She was the very first comment. She was the very first person to come at me with music about Loza Alexander. My very first reaction video was to Loza Alexander. And that began a whole journey in and of itself. I leaned very heavily still into the political side of things. I leaned very heavily still into all of these artists who were saying the things that I was thinking, right? They were screaming out loud all of the things that were going wrong in 2020 and 2021 and into 2022. And I started leaning into the reactions, and I started doing those things. And then I did a Bible study. Just one. It was supposed to be a one-off. I wasn't really going to do Bible studies, and I had to do it because everybody was pushing it. We had Tyson James and his crew over here pushing against homosexuality, and we had the whole rainbow agenda on this side pushing for it. And so we had to deep dive into what actually was going on in Sodom and Gomorrah. If you're interested, these videos are still up. A lot of these reaction videos that are on BitChute, you cannot find. You cannot find them on YouTube. You can only find them here. I eventually started uploading to Rumble and to Odyssey as also backups, right? It's never been my thing to do the alternatives. I was going to try and do Odyssey because it seemed like they would have a better payout system, but there's no traffic there, so it's whatever. But I started talking to my crew about real life issues right about here. Right about the time, like we were talking about it before, because it's always been about the typology, right? I was still doing typology videos then. Typology was what I was here for. The reactions were to drive people to the channel. That's the only reason I started doing reactions. But I believe that God brought me to reactions so that I could learn to talk to my crew about things that are really important. And we did start talking about some really important things. I've talked before about how I'm already successful, right? If I didn't get another subscriber, if nobody ever watched another one of my videos, I've already won the game, because my goal was different, right? My goal was to help you, and I got to do that already. Already, I have had people stay instead of go home because of what I do here. I've had people change their lives because of what I do here. And that has been my goal for our channel. That's why we focus where we do. It's why we don't play with the beef. It's why we don't do the politics like we did. Because they were going to take my channel. And I wasn't going to be able to help anybody. And I can't take that. So I put down the politics. I set them down and I refused to join in and I refused to play the game because the censorship is real. They will take my channel and the things that I believe are not kosher over there, right? On the main place that I can help people because that's where the audience is. So I made the choice for my crew to put down politics that I care greatly about. And I did that not even understanding why, right? Because I wasn't ready for that part yet. I wasn't ready for that part until recently. It has always and will always be focused on the crew because I can help some of you. I can't help everybody, and I'm not doing it. I'm helping you to do it, right? That's what we do here is we help you find what you want to change about you and to give you the tools to help you do that. And when we talk about some of the horrible things that we live through, right? When we talk about those, then we get to find examples of how to get out of it. This video right here is where I first told my story to anyone ever on the planet about being molested as a child. I told it to the crew first. Right? My wife didn't hear about it first. And that was something wrong with me. My wife hears about things first now. But then it was like I was too self. I wasn't grown enough to do the things that I needed to do. And so God had put a block on me on the politics. He kept me from talking about it. And I've been learning and I've been growing. And I'm still stubborn as hell. But I've been pushing and trying. And I've been grinding. And I turned away from the politics. And I started leaning into the more unifying things, the farther along this you get. And when I start getting in, like, I typed Klaus Schwab so people could see stuff, right? And the farther along you get, the less I deal with the politics and the more I intentionally changed. This was my first real band right here. Lucas Lyon, 1984. You should check it out. But I can't tell you what it's about still. That was my first band. And it wasn't long after that I got banned for other ones that are still up over here, but they're not over there. And you can see me lean away from the politics, and you can still see my voice not being right. You can still see problems. But things have changed these days. I feel like I have grown up with y'all. I feel like I have matured into the role that I was trying to assume way back with the MBTI in the beginning. There's a lot of videos here, y'all. There's well over 1,000 videos. And there's well over 1,000 videos still up on YouTube. I still hadn't been fully banned here, but I spent the better part of the next year and a half on shadow ban, at least from YouTube, from trying to tell y'all things that aren't kosher, aren't what we're supposed to talk about. I feel like now maybe I am about to start leaning into that again, and I felt like maybe I owe my crew an explanation about why. Because there is still a chance of censorship, and I am not going to lean as heavily as I was before, but I am going to lean more heavily, right? If you go, there's so many videos, so much growth through this. If you go back to that original, all the way back down at the bottom, y'all might get dizzy, but all the way back down to where the MBTI video where I was trying to explain somebody else's systems and how I had worked through that. You could see the difference between where I was then and where I am now. in so many ways, right? My voice was dying, so I have so many jump cuts, and I was so direct, y'all. Like, it's hard for me to remember that now because I am so much more informative than I was. But that first MBTI video, I started watching that and I got annoyed with myself. I'm like, you're not telling people anything, bro. I would have been open to that then, but there was nobody really to tell me. I don't know if I'm even gonna be able to get down there again. But the point is that there is another level of submission coming, and here's something that's going to tie back to the omeprazole. A few months ago, probably October of last year, I started hearing that small voice, that still small voice in my head, right? And I'm trying to listen to that voice these days, but it didn't make sense because it was telling me to quit taking the pantoprazole that I was now on. I quit taking the omeprazole, and the only difference between the two is one is prescription and one is not, according to the pharmacist, not me. But the voice was telling me that, and you shouldn't listen to voices that are telling you not to take your medication in almost every single case. But for me, this was also part of a journey of getting off of the pharmaceuticals because I have done that. I was on blood pressure and cholesterol medicine back when I was this rather larger person than I am now. If you go all the way back, let's just let it ride down while I'm talking. But if you go all the way back, I was a rather larger person. I was almost in a 38 pants, and I'm down to a 32 now for the first time since I got out of the Navy. But you can watch that progress happen, right? You can see where the exercise started making a difference. You can see where the voice started making a difference. You can see where all of these things happened. And it might have been the pantoprazole. I have been off of it now for about a month, and I have. I listened to the voice and I got mine back. Now, I don't have my stamina back. I can't talk to y'all across a distance at volume like I could. But I don't have the growth in my throat anymore. So I am taking that to mean that God has given me the all clear to go and talk and do with a little bit more wisdom and a little bit more drawing back from where I was. My voice will be back to full normal at some point, but for now I am so thankful that I cried that I can sing in my own voice. I can talk to people without having to manipulate my voice in a way that I've had to do for 3 years. And you can talk about that it might be the medicine because I am quite convinced on my own, with no medical expertise whatsoever and no recommendations on medical advice whatsoever. I am firmly convinced that it was the omeprazole that caused the thing in my throat. But if that voice had not told me to quit taking the omeprazole, then the thing would have never gone away. And if I would have gone and had the surgery, then I never would have made this discovery, and I just would have kept taking the omeprazole. Which leads me into this, because this wasn't really something like I was gonna to talk about other than this other thing that's happened since I talked with Indy and Jesus, and I really had to dive back into my stack and dig into some of my reasonings. And that's why feedback is important, particularly if you are opening yourself up to other people's thoughts, for me, is a big deal, right? And so getting the pushback made me think about things and think about my commitment levels and what I am doing. I have been extremely uncomfortable with taking my views to anyone because of how my stack's built, right? And so I have to, in order to grow, do that. And I am extremely uncomfortable with that. But here's where the surrender comes in, because my game's on hold, y'all. Now, if you've been here for at least the last year, you know that I've been building a video game, and I've spent a considerable amount of time learning how to do so and implementing the things that I have learned. But I feel like God has told me in the last couple of weeks that it's time to stop for a minute. And I don't feel like it's a taking away of, but I do feel like it's a not now. And before I shared that, I had to get a little bit of confirmation on that, because that's not just something you run and be like, well, but I do feel like that because I am very much willpower driven, right? I am very much the stack. If it doesn't work for anyone else ever, it works for me. And I am very much how this stack is built. And I am very much willpower. About the ethics, yes, but about my logic more than anything. And so I had to make sure that I was aligned right and doing things correctly. And I feel like everything's there now. But for the last couple of weeks, I have not been able to sit down and make myself work on the game. I do my videos like normal. I edit them, I get them up, and then I come and I sit here and I open up the video game maker, Unreal Engine, and I know what I've got to do. I know how to do it, and I cannot physically force myself to do it. I don't know what it is. It's not depression or anything like that. And if it's happening, you should consider that because that is a possibility. But it's not. I'm not in a depressed state. I'm in the most hopeful state I've been in my entire life. And I think it is because of the new direction I'm going that I don't have the time to focus there like I would if I was going to put out the kind of game that I want to. Because if I'm going to put out a game, I don't want to put out a shit game. It's going to be good. The game I have, the story I have, the mechanics I have, everything can be done by me, but I'll do it half-assed. But if I feel like what's happening now is God is telling me to wait and he's going to give me a team, and the team will implement it better than I can, and we will all equally share as equally needs to be, because that's who I am and how I am, and I have my goals, but it's not everybody else's goals, and we'll get things worked out as they need to be. I have the story. Somebody else can implement it better than me. I'm in I. And so I feel like not being able to work on this was something that I had to take to God, and so I did. I have spent the last 2 weeks asking him daily about it. And I feel like he has told me that it is a not now. And so I'm going to go with not now. At the same time that this happened, I got my first live request. And it wasn't Indian Jesus. It was Elizabeth. She has a channel. If I remember, I will try to link it. But she's a Tim Pool reactor. She did a reaction, and we found that way. But she's on the Discord. I'm on the Discord with members. And she was like, you should jump on the show. But it's like late. And I'm an early bird. Like I am up, regardless of whether I want to be or not, before 5 o'clock every day. Generally speaking, it's 4 in the morning. And it doesn't matter if I go to bed at 3, I'm up at 4. So I go to bed at 8. I'm fairly regular with it. 8 till 4 is a good night's sleep. If I miss much more than that, I'm a little bit cranky. If I miss a lot more than that, it's rough. So I didn't go on that live, and then I got an opportunity to go on another one. As I was leaning back into the MBTI, and the one I went on the Ides of March. Didn't realize that. I went on, what was the other 2 coincidences? I made a video on guy coordinating coincidence, and it was because of that, because it was the 8 years of my ministry, right? I became an official minister 8 years to the day of that, and I didn't even realize that. Like, that starts the new cycle, if you are familiar with me at all. And there was another coincidence too, and I don't remember what it is. I forget details. But I do have a short on that. It's not that far back. The point being that I feel like I'm being told to let go. And I feel like this is an opportunity, right? We had an opportunity for correction, right? For me to give an example of submitting something that you can't, or submitting yourself and your opinions to someone else for correction. That's what the live was. That's what happened in the live, and I did take some value out of it. I got back in my stack and figured out some things that I needed to. That's the point of that type of a discussion. If you're not learning something from everyone you meet, you are doing something wrong. And now I feel like I'm gonna be leaning into this MBTI stuff some more. I'm gonna be solidifying things some more. I'm gonna be making some more videos on the MBTI and the basics of how things work because I'm kind of direct and I kind of overlook the information that people might need. And so I'm going to try to backtrack and take care of some of that I definitely overlooked in that one video, but I probably overlooked in several of the others. And try to get a firmer fix on it and get a book out, right, on how this works. I started it before and it didn't work because I was trying to do something that I wasn't quite ready for. Right? Sometimes it's a not now. And I am going to be opening myself up professionally in that manner as well. Some of you may be familiar with Patrick Bet David, but he has this Minnect app. And what Minnect lets you do is professionally answer questions, right? So I'm going to be developing the MBTI system the way that I reworked it, and I will be using Minnect as a platform to individually connect with people to help them with it. It is a paid platform. I understand that some people won't like that, but I feel like this is the way that God is leading me towards it. I'm going to try to make the rates very reasonable while keeping in mind that there is a mission and there are things to be done. And so a small amount of profit is absolutely warranted in the situation. So I am going to try. I'm going to work out how to implement that. Part of that is going to be me implementing the more political side of things too, because people will want to talk about those things. I will be open to all the questions, not just MBTI. The way that it works is that you schedule something and I confirm and we meet up through a video chat or through text or however. Like there are a couple of different ways to do things, but it seems to be a fairly accessible thing as long as I can keep everything where it needs to be for my crew. Because this will give you access to me in a very real way too. I know that some people would like that. And I'm not just talking about the people who actually have my phone number, but the other people who would like some more access to ask me questions, to know what I'm thinking about this or that in an uncensored, unbridled manner. It is a little bit weird for me to think about selling my time in that manner, but I sold my time to dig a ditch. I sold my time to clean the oil. Why can't I sell my time to help some people? People will do that. I am an actual pastor. I am certified with the state of Louisiana, and I can actually hold confidence. And so there is that measure too. I did want to just jump in and talk to my crew about all of this, though, because this is a lot of developments, right? This is the lesson in surrender. I'm giving up something that I very much want. And let me get back to that real quick, too. I put a lot of time into my game, y'all. Like, I've put a lot of time. I've sacrificed time with people for that, and that's something that I think might be getting corrected here, too. But it's hard for me. As hard as it would be for me to give up my channel and my connection with my crew and the people that I have helped, it is equally as hard for me to put down the game for right now. And so I want to be an example to my crew in how self-sacrifice is, in a way that's not greedy, in that way. Now, what was happening here is me trying to take control of the situation and push my logic into this is a way out. This is a way to provide for me and my family, which I very, very desperately would love to do. I would so very much love to not be on Social Security that I can't even describe that desire. And this was my way out. Like, I never expected YouTube to be my way out. I didn't. right? I did this to get the knowledge out there and to help people, and that really has been the driving factor. It is wonderful to get paid. I've made $200. I'm about to make three. It's been 4 years. It's a hell of a rate of return, right? It's not about the money. The game was kind of about the money, but it's also like it's a dream. It's something I really do desire for my life, and I do believe that God is going to give it to me. And I'm willing to wait on his timing, like I was willing to wait on the timing of my voice. Despite the conflict that it caused in my personal life. My wife is very concerned for me, and I am blessed by that. And I don't put her feelings to the side lightly on anything, ever. Especially concerning me, because she's the only one concerned for me several times in my life. And so that was a hard thing to do too. And I'm getting my voice back. And it is wonderful. And I've got a path that I get to help people. And that is wonderful. And I can't express more than this how much you mean to me. I do love you, whoever you are, and whether or not I agree with you. I do love you, and I want the absolute best for every single one of you. I think that I have a path. I think that I have a couple of frameworks that people can use to build their own lives in the manner that I have. And I wanted to take the time to talk to my crew and make sure you understood where I come from and what I do and why I do what I do, because not everybody is as truthful as I am. Not everybody really does have the intentions that I really do. And I don't mean to cast aspersions on anyone doing anything similar, because I assume that they mean the best, but not everybody does, but I do. I literally mean what I tell y'all. I literally try to live what I tell y'all. I try to be the best man that I can possibly be. I try to be the best example that I can possibly be, and sometimes that calls for some humility, because it is not easy to cry in front of however many people actually watch this. It may be one, it may be none, it may be 10 million, and it doesn't matter. If it's one, it's enough, because you needed to see it, and that is enough for me. I'm already a successful YouTuber. I've already done that. I've already changed MBTI, and if nobody recognizes that in my lifetime, that's fine too. They will. And that's not me being prideful, I hope. It's a reality. The way my mind works is I see patterns and I fix things. It's what I'm doing. It's why I did what I did to MBTI. It's why I do my Bible study, and it's why we talk about things in reactions. It's because I genuinely do love you. To the crew, thanks for hanging out. I appreciate every single minute that you're here with me. I do. I pray for you every single day. Several times a day. I do. I love you. God loves you. And you are perfect, whole, and complete, just the way that you are. This has been Pitt State. Peace.